let me talk for a few minutes about a case that I just recently wrapped up in Hawaii, of all places, because we handle these cases all over the country, where I represented a timeshare salesperson who worked with the Hilton hotels. And in that case, again, Prudential said, there's no objective evidence of your neck problems. Well, my client actually did have a ton of objective evidence, just Prudential wasn't, I don't use the word, they weren't smart enough to figure out what was actually the objective evidence. I think because they chose to ignore all of the tremendous medical information that had been submitted. Rather, their entire case was based upon the video surveillance of my client. Now, we have literally seen hundreds of cases in which not only Prudential, but other disability insurers have relied on the video surveillance in order to deny the claim. And once these disability carriers get some kind of video surveillance of you doing some kind of activity for 5 minutes, they're convinced that you can go back to work. In my case in particular, in Hawaii, our client, who was in vacation timeshare sales, went to the beach on New Year's Eve day and was swimming in the water for 4 minutes, doing freestyle stroke and some other strokes, and turned her head about 5 times. And based upon that, they basically said, if you can swim and turn your head and lay on the beach for the day for 2 or 3 hours, then obviously you can go back to work and do your job. Well, all the other things that they forgot to mention was that they had done video surveillance of her over 7 days and got a total of about 15 minutes worth of film. When she was on the beach, she had her head on a pillow. She had taken pain meds before. She was inside of her house for 3 days after and then not seen for 2 days after the video. But yet this is what Prudential wanted to base their denial of her benefits on. And that case, from the time she was denied until she was approved, took an exceptionally long time. She had to wait more than 5 years before she finally got her benefits, which I don't know how a person can survive if they have no other source of income. If you have to battle a company, it takes 5 years. Now, 5 years is not the norm. Usually, any federal case is going to take anywhere from 6, 7 months to 18 months, which I think is the average. So, at the end of the day, in our case, we were successful and we uncovered a lot of information about Prudential. We took depositions of 8 different people, including the vice president of their long-term disability division operations, as well as the head of their appeal unit. So we have a ton of information and knowledge about all of the internal workings of Prudential, and we're aware of all of their tactics. Now, another case that I want to discuss is the recent class action lawsuit that we filed against Prudential, which deals with claims that are governed by ERISA and violations that we believe that Prudential has conducted to potentially thousands of claimants, and that deals with their voluntary appeals procedures. And the basis for our class action lawsuit is that when you submit your claim to Prudential for what they call a voluntary appeal, they have had a procedure in place since November of 2005 where they're going back to the same claims person who initially denied the first appeal. Now, Prudential has this process known only to the people at Prudential until it was something that we uncovered in another case. So Prudential thinks that they can go ahead and have the same person review a first appeal and a second voluntary appeal, and that doesn't violate ERISA. Our position is that it flies in the face completely of ERISA. It's unfair, it's unreasonable, and anyone who's submitting a second voluntary appeal has no idea that the same person is going to review and end up rubber stamping a denial of their claim. So if you'd like additional information about our class action, that's pending right now. The class has not been approved as of yet. Of course, as expected, Prudential has filed a motion to dismiss our class action, and actually tomorrow we're filing our response to that. So there's additional information on our website that you can find all about the Prudential class action. I want to talk to you a little bit about some claims handling techniques that we see time and time again from Prudential that you need to be aware of, and you should definitely consult with an attorney if these things come up. Number one thing that you should really be aware of is if you get one of these activities of daily living forms from Prudential, this is probably, usually it's a 6 to 10 page 6 to 10 pages of paper that Prudential is going to ask you to complete, and it asks you how long you can sit in a car, how long you can stand, how long you can sit, how many miles can you walk, how many minutes can you walk, how many bags of grocery can you carry at one time, how often do you go to eat, how often do you go to an extracurricular activity. It goes through every single thing, and you need to be super careful when you answer these forms, because Prudential will try to twist anything they can against you and then send certain information to your doctor from those forms and say, wow, if the claimant's telling us they can sit in a car for 30 minutes or something of that nature, or walk for 15 minutes, do you think they can go back to work? So you want to be extremely careful on how you answer the activities of daily living form. The other thing you got to be aware of is that Prudential has working relationships with doctors all over the country. And time again, there's cases out there, and we've seen it ourselves, where they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars each year with the same physicians that they'll use to do file reviews of your claim. They won't even bother to send you for an independent medical exam, which means to have a doctor examine you. Rather, they'll go back to the same doctors, have them do a paper review of your file, and then render an opinion that you're not disabled. So if Prudential is reviewing your file, especially if you're changing from an own occupation definition to an any occupation definition. So you want to be aware that if Prudential is going to have your file looked at by another doctor, that could definitely subject your claim to being terminated. The other thing that Prudential finds super important, and they always push, is they're going to make you apply for Social Security disability. They're going to refer you to another company. Usually it's Allsup. You also need to be careful there as to how Prudential is working with Allsup or whoever else they hire in order to present your claim for Social Security disability. Because all too often we've seen our claimants are approved for Social Security disability, but then Prudential says, well, even though Social Security disability approved you, we still don't think you're disabled. So you really need to be aware of that. At any time, if you have any issues with a Prudential long-term disability claim, feel free to call us. We always offer a free consultation to discuss your claim. If you've had stories with Prudential, we'd like for you to share them with us, post them on our website so that other people around the world can hear about them. Someone just called me last week who had been on claim for 18 years with Prudential, had a brain injury. The person was seen shopping at the mall, and they figured after 18 years, this woman who was an accountant, who's now 60 years old, is okay to go back to work. So don't ever think because Prudential's paying you every day that they're going to keep paying you, because they're always potentially watching you or looking for a reason to say that you can go back to work. Thank you for watching this episode. We shoot these on a weekly basis. We encourage you to check back in with us. Again, any questions, feel free to call us. My name's Gregory Dell. This is Jessup and Cesar Gavidia. We appreciate your time.